to the City Council of Ottawa for April 11.
Hearts that the residents of Ottawa and the people around the world mourn the loss of many young Canadians over the last few days. C'est avec tristesse que les citoyens d'Ottawa.
It is with much pain and heavy hearts that the residents of Ottawa and people around the world mourn the loss of many young Canadians.
Petrie passed away after a lifetime battle with EB, a rare and incurable genetic skin condition. Despite living through 17 years of pain, Jonathan found a way to spread a positive message and to raise awareness about EB. He was truly a hero to all residents of Ottawa and, in fact, all residents of Canada. Il était un héros pour tout le monde.
He was a hero to all Canadians.
Indelible mark on the city of Ottawa, and everyone who ever had the honor of knowing him will always remember his courageous attitude and positive outlook on life. And of course, his love and knowledge of all things Ottawa Senators. Nous nous souviendrons toujours de son.
We will always remember his positive attitude, his courage, despite the several challenges he had to get over.
Victims that passed in a horrific highway collision last Friday in Saskatchewan. 15 members of the Humboldt Broncos junior hockey team lost their lives in that tragic accident. And in addition to the players who passed, key team members also perished in that tragic accident. The hockey community across Canada and around the world has rallied to support their families and to stand in solidarity amidst the tragedy. As a matter of fact, the hockey community has always rallied around players and fans alike. Parker Tobin, one of the victims of the crash, was a goalie for the Humboldt Broncos. Sadly and ironically, his last tweet before the accident was of James Duthie's sympathetic words to Jonathan Petrie's family after hearing the sad news that same day of Jonathan's passing. These young gentlemen will always be remembered. Ces jeunes hommes seront toujours dans nos cœurs.
They will always be remembered.
Remind us all to cherish every moment of our lives. Les moments comme ceux-ci nous rappellent de profiter. It is often these painful events that cause us to hold our loved ones a little closer and try to be better people and better citizens. Today, the flags outside City Hall have been lowered to half-mast in honor of these young Canadians. I've also written on behalf of the city a letter of condolence to Humboldt Mayor Rob Munch. I would kindly invite all of those who are able to do so, please stand for a moment of reflection in honor of Jonathan Petrie and the Humboldt Broncos hockey team and organization. Thank you. I'd ask you to remain standing, and I want to thank Councillor Caudry, who's provided us with a beautiful butterfly decal in honor of the butterfly boy, Jonathan, and the green ribbon in honor of the team from Saskatchewan, one of their colors. Thank you very much. And I'd ask Councillor Harder now to please introduce our special guest who will sing our national anthem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Barrhaven Music Academy's vocal ensemble, called The Five Strings, is directed by Tashi Bernard. They have been rehearsing together for just over a year now. Avery Simmons, Nisheta Vijay, Lara Poulin, Athana Alexander, and Katie Roberts are the five voices at the Academy that came together to create one beautiful sound. This year they placed top 10 in CBC's Music Class Challenge with their version of the song Lost Boy. They are very excited to be performing the national anthem for you today, and we hope that you enjoy it.
Oh.
Well, thank you very, very much, Councillor Harder, for suggesting these young ladies from Barrhaven to sing our national anthem. Merci beaucoup, Jan.
Thank you so much, Jan and her residents.
We have the honor of recognizing one of our great community volunteers. I'd ask Dallas Greeley to come to the podium for this Meeting City Builder Award. Welcome, Dallas. I was telling Dallas she's got first and last name after two great cities, Dallas and Greeley. Merci d'accepter notre invitation, and ask Councillor Riley Brockington, your councillor, to join us for the presentation. I want to extend a warm welcome to the family, friends, and associates of Dallas Greeley who are with us here today. The Mayor's City Builder Award recognizes extraordinary commitment to making our city a better place through outstanding volunteerism. Le Prix de bâtisseur de la ville décerné.
The Mayor's City Builder Award recognizes extraordinary commitment to making our city a better place through outstanding volunteerism.
Dallas Greeley is being honored for her impressive record of volunteerism at the Billings Estate National Historic Site. She is a leading example of community involvement on the front lines of museums, delivering exceptional customer service and contributing valuable feedback, ideas, and suggestions for improving the operations. Dallas started volunteering 12 years ago with the Tea Room at Billings Estate, which is a great operation. I've been there many times, and has contributed over 2,000 hours of volunteer service since then. Think about that for a minute, 2,000 volunteer hours. She branched out to support other areas, including children's programs, site maintenance, and the Doors Open Ottawa program, as well as interviewing prospective volunteers and providing mentoring and training. Dallas has dedicated her time and efforts to ensure visitors of all ages feel welcome and accommodated during their museum visits. Dallas a investi son temps et
Dallas has dedicated her time and efforts to ensuring visitors of all ages feel welcome and accommodated during the museum visits.
Appreciate her efforts and inquire about her on subsequent visits. She has demonstrated reliability and passion for public service, and she continues to be a valuable ambassador to both the public and to the other volunteers at the Billings Estate. I'd like to take this opportunity, Dallas, to thank you very, very much for your many contributions to the Billings Estate National Historic Site and the entire community. It's my pleasure on behalf of your councillor, Councillor Brockington, to present you with this week's Mayor's City Builder Award. Congratulations. Félicitations. Jean, come on over here because it's in your ward. Well, we'll just ask Jean Cloutier because the Billings Estate is in Jean's ward, and you live in Riley's ward.
I do indeed.
We'll get a
listening.
we'll hold that here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Squeeze in there.
Thank you.
Okay. Put that down there. Get that there.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Brockington, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for this award. It has been my privilege to have had the opportunity to help showcase our beautiful city and our wonderful heritage museums to visitors and local residents alike. I have thoroughly enjoyed working with the Ottawa Heritage Museum family, especially those at the Billings Estate National Historic Site, and of course, I do plan to continue. These museums deliver a unique hands-on experience and a fascinating look into Ottawa's past. They are special and exceptional places, and we are also very fortunate to have easy access to them. The City of Ottawa should be justifiably proud. I am grateful to the managers, supervisors, staff, and students at the Billings site for helping make my volunteer experience one that I truly value, one that encourages me to return as often as possible. I offer my thanks to them all. Next week is National Volunteer Week. To those thinking of volunteering, good for you. Do it. I urge you to step forward, step up, and commit. Believe me, you will not regret it. The rewards are many. A truer sense of community, a chance to experience something a bit different from your life, and have an opportunity for you to offer your unique skills, your knowledge, and those experiences as you become engaged in our exceptional city. Once again, thank you very much for this award. I am truly appreciative. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Next presentation, just these two are here.
April, as some of you may know, is National Poetry Month, and it's my honor to introduce Ottawa's Poets Laureates. I'd ask Mademoiselle André Lassalle and Mr. Jamel Jackson Rogers to join me here for the presentation. Bienvenue, welcome. This is the first time we actually have a English and French poet laureate, so we're very honored to have you with us here today. I'd also ask Matt Fleury, Ward Councillor for Mademoiselle Lassalle, and Eli El Shantiri, Ward Councillor for Jackson, Mr. Jackson Rogers, Jamel Jackson Rogers, to be with us as well. And where is Eli? Here he comes. The Ottawa Poet Laureate Program is administered by Verse Ottawa on behalf of the City of Ottawa. And I'm pleased to welcome representatives from Verse Ottawa today. We have David Steinmeist, President, and Yves Turbit, Past President. If they could wave and come on up here. You might as well, the more the merrier. I also want to recognize the work that Dan Chenier and his group have done to support the Poet Laureate program, including the Cultural Development and Initiatives team. The renewed Poet Laureate program is a significant cultural and educational initiative that contributes to the city's cultural identity by supporting poetry programs and events, and our own Poets Laureate will each recite a poem today following the presentation of the proclamation. Budget 2018 increases funding for the arts, heritage, and festival organizations by $330,000 for a total annual cultural funding budget of $11.3 million. This is, in fact, an historic record investment by the City of Ottawa. A $150,000 increase to the Arts Momentum Fund will bring the fund up to $300,000 to go towards local art initiatives and encourage the cultural vibrancy of our city. This year, we'll also see the completion of the new Arts Court facility just in a few weeks, where 10 new staff will be hired. On assisterait également cette année à l'achèvement.
This year, we'll also see the completion of the new Arts Courts facility, where 10 new staff will be hired.
Ottawa's Poet Laureates now act as ambassadors of poetry here in Ottawa and anywhere they are asked to speak. Literature and poetry, as we all know, inspires us and reaches out to the community and beyond. I want to acknowledge the groups and organizations that foster this creativity, including the League of Canadian Poets, the members of Verse Ottawa, our Poet Laureates, and the members of the poetry community in Ottawa. And now it's my pleasure to proclaim April 2018 as National Poetry Month in Ottawa. And we have the proclamation. And I'm not going to read all the whereases because we want to hear from our poet laureates. But in summary, par conséquent, je Jim Watson, maire de la ville d'Ottawa.
So I, Jim Watson, proclaim April 2018 National Month of Poetry in Ottawa.
National Poetry Month in the City of Ottawa. Let's take a little picture here. So who's going to go first? This too. You're in charge.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of Council, good morning to all. Last year, I received such an honor to be appointed a Francophone poet laureate, and right away, I wanted to write a poem inspired from the geology of the space in Ottawa, in the center and beyond. I spent a day with a geologist, and I learned, maybe you know it already, that we live in a rift. In the Graben, which is the word for rift, says it clearly. And I wanted for a long, long time to better know Kitsisibi, the Ottawa River, our river that is right beside our city. And last summer, thanks to the invitation of a friend who owns Mrs. Chippy, a boat, so I went from Montreal to Ottawa on the boat, and that gave the poem that I will read this morning, and the interpreter will not be translating the poem.
Quand j'étais enfant, la rivière, son paysage, c'était chez moi. Eau libre, eau fossile, eau captive, profonde, jamais ne dorment nos eaux souterraines. Entre la source et l'embouchure, elle court. Sur un bloc de roc, une plante, son ombre. Granites étranges, glyphes de l'ancienne vie. Ottawa, basse terre, nous vivons dans un rift. Nos pas circulent sur des failles. Graben, Ottawa, bonne chère, je pose pied, crois être immobile. Kitsisibi, grande rivière. Libre, droit devant, nous filons. Maintenant je connais de tes berges. Tant d'amour hante ton lit. Fosses, écueils, remous, courants, roches affleurantes, périlleux accostage. Perte de la lumière, tant de morts. Sillage en amont, tant de vie. À gué, je foule, pavé d'algues, site insolite d'une ère en allée. Près du pont, nos souffles, signatures, nos présences, saluent le monde. Rassemblés par ce qui fut autrefois, d'autres âmes en venance, au maillage de la pierre et de l'eau vive. Ici, c'est partout. Demain, la rivière, son paysage. Rivière sans fin pour qui dort, qui veille, qui marche. Kitsisibi, caravane indigène des âmes à venir. Très belle journée, très beau mois de la poésie. Merci.
One more round of applause for your poet laureate, your French-speaking poet laureate. So to begin, I'd like to give a heartfelt thanks to the City of Ottawa municipality, to Verse Ottawa, to the remarkable citizens of the nation's capital for allowing me the privilege to be the English-speaking poet laureate for the city. It's a deep honor, and it's a task that I take with a lot of seriousness and effort. I predominantly work with youth, and every time one of the youth find poetry as their authentic voice, it's almost like I have 5 children of my own, and it's almost like I'm watching the birth of a new, human being again, because poetry is that tool that helps us to express our authentic stories and our experiences. And with that sense of urgency is what I get to witness almost every day. And so it's a beauty. And when I see that happening, I always ask myself, especially with so many faces from so many backgrounds, what does it mean to belong to a community? And growing up in Ottawa and calling this place my home, I wrote this poem, and it's titled Belonging. Belonging. A compound word of sorts, the source of which is loaded with purpose. Our relationship to it is a vehicle endorsed by the need to support emotional attachments. Its course is to be as in to exist, to long as in to yearn, a longing for existence, to be seen and heard as part of a collective, yet accepted as individuals within the divisions of our social circles, rich textures involving, revolving, evolving in a cycle of sharing, trading, and creating, speaking with conviction, practicing inclusion, preserving traditions, becoming the canvas of a unique cultural expression. Belonging is a mixed bag of languages, ethnicities, religions, known for the genuine diversity in a smile, the manner in which we are polite and how often we apologize. So whether you arrive by bus, plane, or paddle, from Hideaway to Africville and the rolling lush geography in between, settle your roots and share your truth of what it means to dream. Plant your feet and let seeds of empathy birth equality. Confront our history before we celebrate our victories. And finally shape this country, this beautiful city, in the way we've always proclaimed its greatness. Because maybe to belong means that we are constantly arriving at the boundaries that welcome those searching for existence, belonging. Thank you.
Well, we are blessed. Thank you very much for those readings. Merci beaucoup pour votre participation à cette réunion. Thank you.
Thank you for being here for this meeting.
Encore merci beaucoup. For our final presentation, it's my pleasure to announce the completion of yet another successful City of Ottawa United Way employee campaign. I'd ask the following to come forward: Councillor Michael Kakish, who served as Councillor Co-Chair; Michael Allen, President and CEO of United Way Centre Ottawa, who's celebrating, I believe, his 20th anniversary with the United Way. Happy anniversary. Marc Belanger, Donor Relations, Manager Accounts United Way; Steve Kanalakis, Dan Chenier, Rainer Boutet, and members of the campaign team. So if there are any members of the campaign team from the United Way, if you'd like to come forward, we would be honored to recognize you for the great work that you did. Welcome all. I would like to thank each and every city employee who worked on the campaign, participated in the many fundraising events and activities, and donated to the United Way Centre d'Ottawa. Je voudrais remercier chaque employé de la ville.
I would like to thank each and every city employee who worked on the campaign, participated in many fundraising events and activities, and donated to United Way.
Incredible success. Staff had a new challenge this year with the launch of a new donation platform. The campaign team had to start fresh with $0 and no rollover dollars. The team set out on a donor recruitment campaign, and as a result, they recruited 200% more donors, and the average gift increased by 70%. I'm pleased to announce that the 2017 United Way employee campaign has raised $280,927.20. Congratulations. Bravo. This amount will directly benefit the lives of 873 Ottawa residents. This is a huge achievement and speaks volumes about the commitment and enthusiasm city employees have for this annual campaign. Since it was designated the corporate charity of choice for the City of Ottawa in 2001, the city has raised almost $7 million for United Way Centraide Ottawa. And giving to United Way, as we see from the signs and the marketing, is 100% local, and all investments change lives right here in our community. The work accomplished every day by city employees and the achievements of the United Way continue to go hand in hand to improve the lives of thousands and thousands of our residents. Le travail que les employés de la
The work accomplished every day by city employees and the achievement of United Way continue to go hand in hand to improve the lives of thousands of Ottawa residents.
President and CEO of the United Way Centraide to say a few words. Michael.
Thank you, Mayor Watson, and thank you to all of the team up front here, as well as to hundreds of City of Ottawa employees. I'm humbled to be here, and as the mayor has said, we hold a privileged position with the city as its charity of choice. But the reasons for that are, I hope, apparent, is that the alignment of our work is virtually 100% in lockstep with the priorities that the City of Ottawa has for this community. And I only regret that I didn't appreciate that today would be the declaration of the Poetry Month in Ottawa, because I would have loved to have been as poetic as the Poet Laureate. So we'll come and talk to you afterwards about helping us express our story and find our voice in more poetic terms. But what I will say is that the poetry that we see is with those hundreds and hundreds of employees who, in their day-to-day work, find yet another way to express their voice through their philanthropy. And more often than not, one of the things that the campaign did this year as well was seek out an opportunity for every department of the city to identify an area of priority. And so it will be no surprise, for example, that Recreation, Culture, and Facility Services focused on priorities within our All That Kids Can Be priority goal, around at-risk neighborhoods and kids who are struggling and at risk. It will be no surprise to you, perhaps, that the City Clerk and Solicitors Department, Mr. O'Connor, supported individuals who are facing challenges with social justice, from poverty to possibilities, was that. And so goes the story for each and every single department of the City of Ottawa. Our job in response to that is to ensure that we demonstrate to you that the dollars that each employee presents or offers and contributes is accounted for and stewarded well. And so it is my pleasure today to provide to you the first in a series of reports that we will provide to you, Mr. Mayor, which accounts for every single dollar that is invested by city employees, in fact, every single donor to the United Way, to report to you how each one of those dollars has made a difference in the lives and in the conditions of the City of Ottawa. So with that, I'll present that to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much.
And finally, by the way, every name of the volunteers are in there as well, including, I believe, yours. Actually, your picture's on the front, Councillor Kakish. I know you like pictures, so we'll get that too. We'll crop that out. Just a final word that these kinds of undertakings don't happen organically. They happen because of the hard and deliberate work by individuals that are tapped on the shoulder to do just a little bit extra beyond their day jobs by people like Steve Candelakis and Dan Chenier. And I want to thank them for their leadership, from taking that cue from the council, and for offering us Rainer, who I understand is going to be back next year in her role. So thank you for that. I regret every 4 years there's a municipal election that interrupts the leadership that we have from city councils, but I do want to acknowledge, because he stepped forward, the support and leadership that Councillor Kakish offered. It makes a big difference for city employees to know that their council supports them. So thank you to all the councillors for your support, both here at the city and in your communities, in making this United Way campaign very, very successful. Thank you, Mayor.
Great, thank you all. Merci beaucoup. Roll call, please, Madam Deputy Clerk.
Conseiller Manette,
Present.
Councillor Middick, Councillor Harder,
Here.
Councillor Wilkinson,
Present.
Councillor El Shantiri,
Present.
Councillor Kadri,
Present.
Councillor Taylor,
Here.
Councillor Shirelli,
Here.
Councillor Aguilard,
Here.
Councillor Deans,
Here.
Councillor Tierney,
Present.
Conseiller Fleury,
Ici.
Councillor Nussbaum,
Present.
Councillor McKenney,
Present.
Councillor Leeper,
Ici.
Councillor Brockington,
Here.
Councillor Chernyshenko,
Present.
Conseiller Cloutier,
Present.
Conseiller Blais, Councillor Derouse,
Here.
Councillor Moffat,
Here.
Councillor Kakish,
Present.
Councillor Hubley, Mayor Watson.
You see?
Le quorum est étient, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you. Confirmation of minutes, adoption de procès-verbaux pour le 28 mars 2018. Carried. Declaration of interests, including those originally arising from prior meetings. Déclaration de conflit d'intérêts. None. Communications as presented. Regrets, Councillor Middick advises he'll be absent from the City Council meeting of April 11th, 2018. Motion to introduce reports. Motion portant présentation de rapport. Councillor Nussbaum, please.
That the report from the Integrity Commissioner entitled Report to Council on an Inquiry by the Meetings Investigator Budget Review Board, Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee Report 33, Environment and Climate Protection Committee Report 19A, Finance and Economic Development Committee Report 33, Planning Committee Report 60A, Transportation Committee Report 31, and the report from the City Clerk and Solicitor's Office entitled Summary of Oral and Written Public Submissions for Items Subject to the Planning Act Explanation Requirements at the City Council meeting of March 28, 2018 be received and considered, and that the petition with respect to the rezoning of the proposed site of the Taggart and Miller Environmental Services landfill project listed on the agenda be received, that the rules of procedure be suspended to receive and consider Planning Committee Report 61 as follows. Suspension of the rules is being requested for item 1 to avoid further delay to the application, which has been delayed due to the protracted discussions on ratifying the City of Ottawa's sub-pump policy. Suspension of the rules is being requested for item 2 so that council consideration is obtained prior to the mural project being assessed for a possible grant from the city's Painted Up Committee meeting on April 13th, 2018. Suspension of the rules is being requested for item 3 to avoid further delay to the Pond 1 expansion in the Leitrim community.
On the motion, carried. Item number 1, report to Council on inquiry by the Meetings Investigator Budget Review Board, rapport au Conseil sur enquête de l'enquêteur sur les réunions comité d'études de budget. Received. Committee reports, Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee, report number 33, rapport numéro 33, item number 2, numéro 2, official plan, Richmond Secondary Plan and Village of Richmond Community Design Plan and Zoning Bylaw Amendment for 6139 and 6143 Perth Street, modification au plan officiel pour la Village de Richmond. Carried. Item 3, official plan and zoning bylaw amendments 5471, 5575, and 5613 Boundary Road, 5554, 5508, 5570, 5610, and 5800 Frontier Road. Modification au plan officiel et au règlement de zonage sur la rue Boundary et aussi Frontier. Carried. Site alteration bylaw, Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee. Carried. On the ARAC recommendation should be voted on first. So on ARAC, carried. On the report, carried. Planning Committee, lands affecting the Carlsbad Springs Community Center. Councillor Blais, I believe you have a technical amendment, seconded by Councillor Moffat. If you'd like to introduce that now.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's simply to add that council directs staff to conduct the work. And then in item number 2, provide the source of funds for, and this is the change, capital upgrades and one-time costs associated with any potential lease or access to the lands from the NCC. I'm happy to provide context if people have any questions.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I'm happy to provide the context to the members of council if there are questions about the broader.
Okay, so the motion is up. Does anyone have any questions, or can we? No. Okay, so on Councillor Blaine Moffat's motion, carried. On the motion as amended, carried. Item number 6, Community Energy Innovation Fund from the Environment and Climate Protection Committee. Fonds pour l'innovation en matière des technologies énergétiques communautaires, carried. Item number 7, Ottawa Music Strategy, Stratégie musicale d'Ottawa, carried. Thank you to Councillor Leeper. Item number 8, Diefenbunker Museum, 3929 Carp Road, Musée Diefenbunker 3929, Chemin Carp, extension till May 31st, carried. Planning Committee Report number 60A, rapport numéro 60A du Comité de l'Urbanisme, South Nepean Town Centre Community Design Plan, Official Plan and Zoning Bylaw Amendment, 3311 Greenbank Road and 3380 Jockville Road, modification au plan de conception et communautaire de centre-ville de Nepean Sud, carried. Planning Committee Report number 61, rapport numéro 61 du Comité de l'Urbanisme, modification au règlement de zonage et modification au plan de conception communautaire 3900 chemin Cambrian, 3454 et 3508 chemin Greenbank et 3345 chemin Boris O'Kane. Okay. On that, carried. Item number 11, exemption to permanent signs on private property bylaw mural at 215 Wurtemberg Street. Délégation règlement les enseignes permanentes sur les propriétés privées peinture murale située au 215 rue Wurtemberg. Carried. Item number 12, amendments to document 4 of report ACS 2018 PIE PS 0005, front-ending report stormwater management ponds 1 and 2, Leitrim Road storm drainage system, north-south swale and oversized trunk storm sewers in Leitrim community. Well, that's a succinct title. On the report, carried. Transportation Committee, report number 31, rapport numéro 31 du Comité des Transports, Albert and Slater Streets, post-LRT repurposing, functional design, and Slater Street realignment, environmental assessment study recommendations, recommandation de l'étude de conception fonctionnelle sur la rue Albert et Slater. Hold. Okay, we'll come back to that. Item 14, always stop control at the intersection of Joshua Street and Saddle Ridge Drive. Carried. Dissent by Councillors Chernyshenko and McKenney and Eglai. Okay, bulk consent agenda. Councillor Nussbaum would like to lift item number I. Is there anything else? Anything else on the bulk consent that people would like to take off? So on the bulk consent agenda as presented, carried. Yeah, and Councillor Deans and Harder dissented on the stop sign. Okay, Transportation Committee report number 31, rapport numéro 31 du Comité des Transports. Councillor Tierney asked that this be held.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and I do apologize. I wasn't able to attend the Transportation Committee meeting, which I wanted to because we also had a conflicting police board meeting at the same time. In regards to this project, would you consider this a main streeting project or repurposing street project? And also, I'm just looking for the costs from the city perspective that would be involved in this.
I'll ask Ms. Chi to give you the cost breakdown. In terms of what type of a project is, I'm going to call it a one-of-a-kind that has citywide implications in that it is as I said at the Transportation Committee meeting, it's really the tipping point of the outcomes you're going to get from your multi-billion-dollar investments in LRT, in that you're going to transform the core, which has impacts for everyone citywide, whether you're doing a cross-city commute, whether you're looking at the environmental lens, the economic development lens, pedestrian mobility, cycling, car mobility, and so forth. So I wouldn't categorize it in any of the buckets that currently exist. It's a one-off that really is transformational and has citywide impacts on it. And I can get Ms. Chi to give you the breakdown on the costs.
Yes, for the western part of this project between Empress and Bay, it's a total reconstruction project, so there's some pipe work that have to be done, and that project is worth $26 million. It's the integrated road and sewer works. The central and eastern section, we have a city budget of $6.4 million to do that work, and we have also sought provincial funding through the greenhouse gas challenge fund of $4.6 million to augment that 6.4.
And I'm going to ask this question because when we did Elgin Street, in full disclosure, I voted against that. I asked, okay, out of this $42 million, how much is below ground goes on the sewer and water side versus on our city tax side? What happens in regards to the $26 million that you're talking about here? You're saying a lot of it's our sewer and water work. Is that on the tax roll side, or is that on the sewer and water side?
That's part of the regular program, and there are some DC funding that goes towards that. It's just the regular program that the city has. The other portion for the central and east, that is tax dollars, and there are no development charges there.
So how much would it be on the city side that is coming off the city tax roll? And again, sorry, I wish I could have attended the meeting. I don't like to broadside people with questions like this, but it's kind of important.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, I don't have the exact breakdown. I look at finance. I doubt we'd have that at our fingertips because there's multiple funding sources. But as Vivi said, there's the integrated program, which is funded from multiple sources. There's the provincial top-up, but I don't have the exact breakdown for you, Councillor. I apologize.
Well, I have a challenge with this one because I talked about this before. We spent like $270 million on, 6 Main Streeting projects in the downtown area, which doesn't do anything for the roads in my neighborhood. It's a concern. I know we'll have this discussion next council. It will be a big discussion, especially in the upcoming election, but I kind of need this information. So with the absence of that information, I'm going to dissent on this. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Eglai, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hear what my colleague is saying about needing the information and that he couldn't attend the meeting, and I appreciate that. He had multiple obligations. However, there's been a fairly lengthy gap between the meeting and today's meeting when he could have reached out to staff and asked that question and got the information that he needed. So I'm sorry we don't have it here today. But it could have been provided in a timely fashion prior to the vote today.
Well, he didn't mention you by name, so unfortunately those are the rules. Okay, anyone else on the item? Oh, okay, on the report as presented? Carried. All right, the next item that was held is Councillor Nussbaum, tax ratios and other tax policies. Councillor Nussbaum, please. And you have a motion that you'd like to move.
Sure, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and apologies, I missed the discussion, or I missed this item at FEDCO when it came up last week, but I do want to thank staff because I've had useful discussions with them on this item. And essentially what my motion proposes is that the substantive portion is that we direct staff to examine and review the optional property classes and tax ratios within the commercial property class, that they conduct any required consultation if changes to either of those is proposed, and that staff report back to council with any recommendations prior to the date at which council needs to establish the optional property classes and tax ratios for 2019. And the context for the motion, Mr. Mayor, is that the commercial tax ratios, although the relationship between the commercial tax rate and the residential tax rate is set by the Ontario Municipal Act, we do have discretion as a city for the subclasses within the commercial category. And my understanding is those haven't changed since amalgamation. I think it would be useful for council to get advice from staff to see whether or not it would make sense for the city to consider changes either to those tax classes or to the relative ratio of how one versus another commercial property owner pays the property tax. And just to use a very specific example, if you're a small business owner in the city and you pay the general commercial class rate, you're paying a higher ratio tax than a vacant property owner who owns the lot next to you, or a surface parking lot owner who owns the lot across the street. And in light of the fact that as a city, we're trying to encourage beneficial use for land in our city, and given a lot of the direction that we have in the official plan in support of beneficial uses of property, I think it's worth taking a look at that to make sure, again, that we have a productive use like a small business, not essentially cross-subsidizing a less productive use. Recognizing that in all of this, such a review would be, at the end of the day, revenue neutral, meaning there wouldn't be a greater tax burden on the entire commercial class than there is today. So all the motion is seeking is for staff to take a look at this and come back to us with some advice, or whoever's in these seats with some advice prior to the 2019 process. Thank you.
Councillor Fleury, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Moi, j'appuie.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. We talked about this, and I support this initiative. I think we have to be fair in our approach. We invest a lot in transit, for example, and this coordination where we promote transit in Ottawa has to be done in this context. I think it's a roadblock if you don't do this sort of thing. And we want intensification on vacant lots that have been there for a long time and that are used for surface parking. So I support my colleague's initiative.
Councillor Brockington.
Just if I could get a staff comment on this first, and then I have another question. Is staff open to what's being proposed by the councillor? And I'll just actually ask my question at the same time. The councillor referred to ratios being in place since amalgamation took place. Why hasn't there been a review, if that's true? Why hasn't there been a review since then?
Staff is supportive of the request that's coming from Councillor Nussbaum. The subclasses that are in place today have been in place since amalgamation. The city has taken advantage of all of the subclasses that the province allows us to have. We're happy to review that and report back to council in terms of what those impacts may look like in the future.
Does Councillor Nussbaum's motion incorporate every ratio that hasn't been looked at since amalgamation? Is it fulsome enough?
Yes, it incorporates all of the subclasses within the commercial class.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Councillor Moffat, please.
Just a quick question. In the preamble of the motion here, it suggests that no other large Ontario municipality has established tax ratios for vacant lots and parking lots that are lower than commercial uses. Is that true? A quick glance at Windsor says it's not true. Is Windsor a large municipality? I have no idea. But is the motion accurate? I just don't want to have the preamble influence the resolution, and the preamble actually has inaccurate information. Just a quick question.
Mover of the motion.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Moffat. We looked at Hamilton, London, Toronto, I think one of the municipalities north of Toronto. I don't think we included Windsor in that review.
Oof, that is a harsh,
so
that is a harsh
apologies
blow to the people of Windsor.
If they're insulted by not being considered a large municipality. I'm certainly open to saying very large municipality if that would solve the problem.
I just want to make sure that's not, so we aren't alone, because Windsor is somewhat large. But that's the only one I looked at, just really quickly. So that's all. It was slightly misleading in that way, but thank you for clarifying.
Other comments on the motion? What else? On the motion? Carried. All right, thank you for that. And the motion, the item as amended, carried. Motion to adopt reports. Motion portant adoption de rapport. Councillor Nussbaum.
That the report from the Integrity Commissioner entitled Report to Council on an Inquiry by the Meetings Investigator, Budget Review Board, Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee Report 33, Environment and Climate Protection Committee Report 19A, Finance and Economic Development Committee Report 33, Planning Committee Report 60A and 61, Transportation Committee Report 31, and the report from the City Clerk and Solicitor's Office entitled Summary of Oral and Written Public Submissions for Items Subject to the Planning Act Explanation Requirements at the City Council meeting of March 28, 2018, be received and adopted as amended.
On the motion, carried. Motions of which notice have been previously given. Motion dont avis a été donné entièrement. I have a motion seconded by Councillor Fleury. I'll just read the motion. Whereas payday loan establishments are currently licensed and regulated by the Province of Ontario under the Payday Loans Act 2008, and whereas there are currently 55 payday loan establishments licensed by the Province of Ontario in the City of Ottawa, it includes area of significant geographic concentration, whereas Section 154.1 of the Municipal Act 2001 authorizes municipalities to define the area in which a payday loan establishment may or may not operate and limit the number of payday loan establishments in any defined area in which they are permitted effective January 1st, 2018. And therefore, be it resolved that Council direct the General Manager, Planning, Infrastructure and Economic Development to examine options and establish a cap on the number of payday loan establishments, detail measures to reduce concentration, and bring forward amendments to the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008-250 and report back to the Planning Committee. And be it further resolved that Council direct the General Manager of Emergency and Protective Services to analyze the effectiveness of a licensing regime in light of the proposed zoning strategy and taking into account that payday loan establishments are currently licensed by the province, and to report the findings to the Community and Protective Services Committee. Just a couple of brief comments. The proliferation of payday loan establishments in the city and their impact on vulnerable residents has been a long-standing concern in our community. In fact, as mentioned in the preamble, there are 55 of these establishments. The vast majority are concentrated on areas like Bank Street, as well as Rideau Street and Montreal Road. An update was provided to the Community and Protective Services Committee in June of last year. At that time, proposed changes to provincial government legislation regulating the lenders were in the works, but were not law. Those legislative changes have now been implemented as of January 1st, 2018, and this is good news for us. Ces changements importants ont été apportés à la
Major changes were made to the Act, and we can limit this type of establishment that do harm to our community.
For the location of payday loan establishments and to limit their number. This is something we did not have the power to do before the changes. Today's motion directs staff to examine options for a cap on the number of these storefronts, to look at how to prevent concentration, and to consider whether there is merit in us licensing them in addition to the provincial licensing framework. Other municipalities, including Toronto and Hamilton, are looking at similar measures. D'autres municipalités veulent aussi
Other municipalities want to implement similar measures that are similar throughout the province.
The Committee on Potential Siting Restrictions and the Community and Protective Service Committee on Licensing. So I think we've all seen, anyone who's gone down Montreal Road, gone down parts of Bank Street, down Rideau Street, recognizes these operations, which really do prey on the poor and the vulnerable, are popping up more and more in areas that are economically challenged. And for the first time, we actually have some ability under the Municipal Act to limit these and to distance them from each other, because quite frankly, when you talk to the BIAs of those areas, they bring nothing to the streetscape of our communities. So there's no question, I think we have to continue to work with the banking industry to make sure that there are options available for the poor and vulnerable, that they have an ability to cash checks and transact with a financial institution that is not charging outrageous interest rates as they do with the payday loan industry. So I very much appreciate Council's support on this and ask my seconder, Councillor Fleury, for some comments. Merci.
Merci, Mr. Nair, and
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
for summarizing it all. I want to first and foremost thank Council, because this goes back a few years when we intervened through AMO on Bill 59, which was the Consumer Protection Act review, which reviewed the Pawnbrokers Act and so on. Sorry, the Payday Loans Act. I want to give a chance to Steve Willis, our general manager, to speak about the effort of staff on this, not only from the involvement to AMO, but also since the province has enacted the new regulations. But before I do so, I wanted specifically to thank our community partners who brought this to our attention, and that's the team of Acorn who's in the audience here today with us. And also specifically a community lawyer by the name of Peter Kucherapa, who did a lot of the legwork between the federal agencies and provincial banking agencies so that we can properly understand the issue and what the responsibility of the city was in that regards. Mr. Willis, if you could say a few words as to what your team has been doing with the payday loan issue.
Mr. Mayor, just to advise Council, staff have been working ever since the advent of Bill 59 and through Council inquiries, such as inquiries through Councillor Fleury, information provided us by community groups such as Acorn and others. We've gathered a great deal of information on both what the payday loan situation is in Ottawa, as well as best practices in other communities and other provinces. As the Mayor pointed out, the Municipal Act change gives us an opportunity that did not exist prior to January 1st, which gives us an opportunity to build a rationale through a zoning system that will allow us to look at the matters that are addressed in the motion, such as caps and separation distances. So staff is prepared to engage work on this should Council support this motion.
Great. And just as a quick follow-up, Mr. Willis, I gave you a heads up that, as you know, we're seeing in the news Hamilton and Toronto, more specifically Toronto earlier this week, brought in an interim measure as part of the staff review. Can you maybe speak to what options we have here in Ottawa?
So, Mr. Mayor, staff believe that a conventional zoning review process is appropriate public policy development on this file. We think it's the right methodology, and it will allow us to engage the public and all other stakeholders in an appropriate manner. We do not, as a staff, support an interim control bylaw applied on citywide issues on this file or any other planning matter, Mr. Mayor, because under the Planning Act, should we apply a citywide interim control bylaw on any issue, we would be unable to pass any further interim control bylaws on any planning topic for 3 years. And we believe that that would close Council's flexibility to deal with any other urgent matter that might come about, so staff would not support that.
Okay. Thank you. I understand that. I want to briefly speak to the options, and I think there's a lot of work that can be done with our banking sector federally. We have a role here in zoning, and that it be a cap or separation distance. It will go a long way, Mr. Mayor, in achieving a more balanced neighborhoods from a financial institution. But we have a pilot project in our city through Causeway in terms of loans, and they've done 20 successful loans. But what they need is some of the philanthropists in our community to have the initial capital dollars so that they can provide more loans. We'd love to see storefronts in those areas that have existing payday lenders. So it's a reminder to us all in our communities that if we can support the Causeway initiative, we can expand it, and credit unions like Alterna, Credit One, and others are also willing to open storefronts in neighborhoods to compete with the existing payday loan industry and offer affordable loans to community members. So really, Mr. Mayor, thank you for bringing this forward, and I want to thank the community for the ongoing efforts in making sure that the predatory lending stops here in Ottawa.
Merci. Councillor Brockington, please.
I think the term predatory lending, it hits the nail on the head because these organizations are vultures preying on the most at-risk people, and it's disgraceful, their proliferation in certain communities. And so I strongly support us looking at regulating the location and the number of these locations, particularly in certain neighborhoods. But what I'm very disturbed about, and certainly the stories I've heard some of my residents with, is the high level of interest these locations charge. That's the criminal part of this, in my opinion. It's even if you reduce the number of establishments in the neighborhood, they're still going to exist. And maybe even with the lack of competition in some neighborhoods, things might actually get worse. And so obviously the rate of interest is not governed by a municipality, but does staff know whether this particular component is being looked at, whether there's some real regulations or teeth coming to legislation that will limit what these establishments can actually get away with charging their clients? The interest rates are insane. They're not considered banks. Banks have caps on what they can charge as far as interest goes, but is this being looked at? Because I think this is the missing piece that's causing a lot of hardship for many people.
Mr. Mayor, my colleagues can correct me if I misstate this, but the level of interest is now a matter regulated by the province of Ontario, and the province has enabled itself through the legislation to do additional controls in this area.
So sorry, that's being looked at, or that's in place now?
Mr. Mayor, the province has already empowered itself through legislation to limit the interest rates.
Okay, so I don't need that information today, but can I get that information from staff, the details? I see yes. Okay,
we'll
thank you.
do that. Thank you. Councillor El-Shantiri, please.
Just a question to our staff, Mr. Mayor, because as a councillor who sits on Council of Ottawa BIA, they always telling us we don't share with them ahead of time. Have we reached out to the BIAs or the Ottawa Council of BIA?
Mr. Mayor, it's our intent that in embarking on a planning study on this matter, they would be a key stakeholder at the table. So should council support this motion, it's absolutely our intent to consult the Council of BIAs.
Okay, thank you to you.
Right, good point, Councillor. Thank you for that. Councillor McKenney, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to pick up on the question of the interim control bylaw. Could you just clarify for me what exactly is the issue around? So if we have an interim control bylaw that's citywide, that means you can have no other interim control bylaws in any of those areas?
Mr. Mayor and Mr. Mark can assist me in responding to this should council require that. Under the Planning Act, council is only allowed to pass an interim control bylaw in any geographic area once in every 3 years. Should you pass an interim control bylaw citywide, you would not be able to pass any further interim control bylaws anywhere in the city for 3 years. For example, where we have applied the interim control bylaw related to bunkhouses, in those areas, we cannot apply interim control bylaw for 3 years until after that's over.
Okay, so we could then, I mean, the issues are directed at very specific locations. I could probably come up with most of them right now, but, you know, obviously Bank Street, Vanier, Saint Joseph, but there are probably about 5 or 6 BIA areas where we have predatory lending establishments that are concentrated. So is that an option?
Mr. Mayor, the answer to the question is it is absolutely an option council has. I would caution the councillor that in our research, the distribution is actually much more widespread than perhaps you suggest. And I would urge council to allow us to do the planning study and bring that forward. We do appreciate the urgency of the issue and would like to make it a priority. And it's our advice that you don't invoke the interim control bylaw.
Can I just ask then what that timeline will be, because I know on Bank Street, for example, we are seeing, more and more open. I think that Councillor Fleury will tell you the same thing. They are very much concentrated, at least in certain areas. They may be widespread. I'm not debating that, but there are certainly areas of the city where we are seeing 5, 6, 7, within a few kilometers. So what is the time frame then for you to report back?
So, Mr. Mayor, should Council adopt this motion today, we expect that we'll need the bulk of the rest of the year to complete the planning analysis to build a defendable planning position. We have to consult with the community, the industry, the stakeholders, the BIAs, and others, and we think that based on prior experience, we'll need 9 months to do that, and we would expect that we would report early to the next council.
Okay, I'll leave it at that for this morning, but I will likely follow up to look at certain areas. I really am concerned that we're just allowing and obviously having one that is predatory as opposed to having 6. It's the high interest rates, it's the process of the loan that is the problem. But at the same time, while they are predatory to folks coming out and borrowing money, they're also set up a predatory type environment where they're located as well. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Councillor Leeper, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Very briefly, Mr. Willis, I do think I want to take you up on your offer to have Mr. Mark provide more details on the applicability of an interim control bylaw when one has passed. I'm reading the prohibition in 38.7, where an interim control bylaw ceases to be in effect, the council of the municipality may not for a period of 3 years pass a further interim control bylaw that applies to any lands to which the original interim control bylaw applied. It seems as if there's some wiggle room in there, and if we could get Mr. Mark to provide council with a memo on that one. I'm not convinced that an interim control bylaw is necessary, but I would really like to understand in much greater depth how that clause is to be interpreted.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Mark has heard that. Thank you very much. Merci. On the motion, carried. Thank you. Next motion is by Conseiller Monette, seconded by Councillor Blais, with respect to Orleans Poutine Fest. Councillor Monette, I hope you're inviting us all to Poutine Fest.
Actually, it's quite nice to see festivals and people realizing that in the suburban and in Orleans that we can have festivals like the rest of the city of Ottawa. And yes, everybody is encouraged to attend. It's great for the economy, and it's great to provide festivals and entertainment to our local residents and to all residents of Ottawa. Two motions are very closely related. The first one is whereas the Orleans Poutine Fest is an outdoor festival promoting traditional, gourmet, exotic, different worlds of poutine, featuring multiple food vendors, musicians, and craft beer. And whereas the Orleans Poutine Fest is to occur on Friday, May 11th through May 13th, and whereas Central Boulevard from Breezeball Crescent to Prestone is required to be closed to accommodate the festival on-street festival setup, and whereas the on-street festival setup will commence at 6 p.m. on Thursday, May 10th, and the festival will begin operation at 11 a.m. on Friday, May 11th. I will go to therefore at this point. Therefore, be it resolved that Council approved a road closure for Central Boulevard from Breezeball Crescent to Prestone Drive from 6 p.m. to Thursday, May 10th at 6 a.m. on Monday, May 14th for the Orleans Poutine Fest, providing it meets the requirements, conditions, and approvals of Special East Event Advisory Seat. Second one, same type of motion.
Councillor, we'll just deal with the one at the time so we can vote on it. So on the motion with respect to Poutine Fest, carried. The floor is yours on the beer festival.
Thank you. Second one's a very similar motion, whereas the Orleans Craft Beer Festival is an outdoor festival promoting local breweries, food, vendors, and musicians. And whereas the Orleans Craft Beer Festival is to occur Thursday, June 7th through Saturday, June 9th, 2018, whereas Central Boulevard from Breezewell Crescent to Prestone Drive is required for closure, whereas the on-street festival setup will commence at 8 a.m. on Thursday, June 7th, and the festival will begin operation at 3 p.m. on Thursday, June 2018, and the rest of it, therefore, is the same as the previous one.
So on the motion by Councillor Monette, carried. Thank you. Next motion, it's a revised motion from Councillor Leeper and seconded by Councillor McKenney on cycling. So if you want to explain the difference, Councillor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I am not going to read all of the whereases, but for a variety of very good reasons to encourage cycling in the city. Share the Road Ontario has asked the city to participate in a province-wide effort to get the Queen's Park to commit to renewable funding year after year to pay for cycling infrastructure in municipalities. There have been 2 very productive rounds of Cycle On funding, but we would like to see that extended to predictable yearly contributions to municipalities to pay for cycling infrastructure. To that end, the be it resolveds are therefore be it resolved that Ottawa City Council petition the provincial government to include an annual investment in cycling infrastructure in the Ministry of Transportation's capital budget, and be it further resolved that Mayor Jim Watson write a letter of support to the Minister of Transportation, and be it further resolved that this resolution be forwarded to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario's Large Urban Mayors Caucus of Ontario to encourage them to join with the City of Ottawa in calling on the province to act.
Okay. The motion carried. Motions requiring suspension of the rules of procedures. Motion exigeant la suspension des règles de procédure. Councillor Harder has a motion seconded by Councillor Tierney with respect to Canada's smart cities and a time requirement that has to be met on suspension. Carried. Councillor Harder, you have the floor.
Mr. Mayor, and I apologize, everyone, for the late notice. It's been Mr. Willis and his staff and Ms. Gray and her staff have been working really hard 24/7 on this one, and with the deadline we have and the next council meeting, the day after the deadline, we had to deal with it today. So that's why you'll notice in the very last paragraph, it says, be it further the resolve, the council delegated authority to the general manager of planning, infrastructure and economic development to make minor revisions to the statement before submission. And, you know, the conversation I had yesterday with Mr. Willis, tweaks if necessary. So if you don't know about this, Canada has issued a Smart City Challenge, and we are actively and openly going forward to win it. The challenge is open to communities and cities across Canada, and there are different levels, but the only one that we can compete for is the $50 million prize. The challenge is about inspiring communities to define their future using a smart city approach, an approach that uses data and connected technology. As you see from the motion in front of you, Ottawa's Smart City Challenge bid is centered on creating a stronger and better Ottawa by investing in our youth. Our youth are our most valuable resource. We need to focus on educating and training them and give them the opportunity to learn by doing. That learning runs both ways by bringing our youth together through innovation hubs. We have the opportunity to work together with them to co-create our smart city solutions and equip them with skills and experience they need to enter the workforce. And let's face it, you heard last week that our unemployment rate is 4%, and we are looking for how many, 1,000 jobs a day in Canada for technology? We have gaps across the businesses in our city looking for the new kind of smart technology. So when we talk about those hubs, a prime example is the work the city's doing with our partners in Invest Ottawa and the NCC to develop a collaborative multi-use test bed across from the Nepean Sportsplex at the National Capital Commission Greenbelt Research Farm, where we will be the only ones in North America to have a multi-use test bed to support smart innovations, which have now multiplied in opportunities, including rural connectivity. And we actually have adopted a name for it, which is the Center of Open Innovation and Networking, COIN, and you'll get more information on that but there's lots of things happening. We want to ensure that we're engaging our youth in these initiatives and preparing them for the future job market. The recent job fair we had in Canada demonstrated that there are high-tech job vacancies, as I just mentioned. We have the opportunity to collaborate with our libraries. We have such a strong library system, our 33 branches with our 34 being our digital branch, led by Councillor Tierney. And our schools, I think that we're rare as a large city in Canada to have 4 school boards and 4 strong school boards. So we're including them, and we've already had initial discussions with the directors of education at all 4. We have the opportunity to collaborate with all of those folks to deliver a variety of programming aimed at children and youth. We need to create safe environments and reconnect youth to their communities by, for example, developing platforms to ensure young people feel safe and connected to their community and peers, including at-risk youth, youth with disabilities, youth in rural Ottawa, youth all over Ottawa. That's what's quite unique about this. So I hope that you've had the time to read the motion. If you go to the second last paragraph, that is our statement that we're putting forward by the 24th. And we are confident that we will get shortlisted. We're hopeful and confident we'll get shortlisted. But I think that it's quite telling in what it says, that creating a smarter future means investing in our youth. Ottawa imagines a city where young people are safe, active, healthy, and empowered to innovate and co-create our city's future, measurably increasing youth employment and providing youth with the skills, experience, and confidence needed to succeed in today's digital economy. So I ask you to support that and to help us cheer on. Once we're shortlisted, there'll be a ton of work for all of us to be leading on, and definitely with our wards across the city. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much for your leadership on this file. Councillor Leeper, please. And I know it's also Councillor Tierney and Hubley are the working group on Smart Cities, so thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor. The Smart City designation can refer to a lot of different things, and one of the things that I'm always watching is to try to make sure that we are cognizant that there are some fundamentals to a smart city that need to be respected before we can call ourselves smart. And one of those is that the city is creating data, that people in the community have access to that data, and that they are then able to contribute to community building by using digital tools, working with that data, which then inspires more people to continue working with it. I think what I'm interested in seeing in this proposal and in our application is that key word, co-create. The opportunity to put data in the hands of youth to get them to work on city problems is exciting. And I think that's a fundamental underpinning of what a smart city is. We can be distracted sometimes by the shiny toys, the shiny technologies. Smart cities are cities that have autonomous vehicles or things like that. This is striking right at the core of what it means to be a smart city. Open data, engagement by citizens with data and digital tools. And my understanding, at least of what I'm reading here, is that the application is firmly in line with what we need to do if we're going to call ourselves a smart city. So I'm really pleased to support this today. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Nussbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Harder for the introduction. Just a question for Mr. Willis. The challenge statement sounds excellent for all the reasons Councillor Leeper just alluded to. I'm just wondering in terms of the proposal itself, because we're being asked to, it sounds like we're being asked to support both the challenge statement and the proposal. Challenge statement looks fantastic. Is there going to be an opportunity for council to see the proposal before it's formally submitted?
Mr. Mayor, the proposal is due the 22nd, so if any, and I certainly welcome any councillor who has an interest in this file to connect with staff, and we'll make sure that we'll show you some of the contents. We're trying to make a bid that will win, and we're asking only council support today for the challenge statement as a matter of support, so we welcome any input between now and bid day.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. Councillor Fleury.
Very briefly, Mr. Mayor, I just want to thank staff and our council colleague who are leading these efforts. OCH is a willing partner and certainly encouraged partner. As you know, we have a very successful program with the city called Youth Futures, who's shown its success over the years, and I see this initiative as a different initiative altogether, but certainly in the same realm of the partnership that Ottawa Community Housing has with the city administration.
Merci. Any other comments on the motion? Carried. Thank you. Any other motions requiring suspension of the rules of procedure? No. Notice of motion for consideration at a subsequent meeting. Avis de motion pour examen à réunion subséquente. None. Motion to introduce bylaws. Motion portant présentation de règlement municipal. Conseil municipal, please. Seconded by Councillor Deans.
That the bylaws listed on the agenda under motion to introduce bylaws first and second reading be read, and that the bylaws listed on the agenda under motion to introduce bylaws 3 readings be read and passed.
On the motion, carried. Adopté. Merci. Confirmation bylaw, règlement de ratification, Conseil municipal et Deans.
That the following bylaw be read and passed to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting of April 11th, 2018.
Carried. We have one written inquiry. Okay. Councillor Blais has a written inquiry. I haven't seen yours, Councillor. Do you have a copy?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The City of Ottawa, like many across North America, is working towards developing green energy to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels and to expand revenue opportunities to support enhancements to the quality of life of our residents. We are perpetually replacing old water mains and installing new ones to service growing suburban communities. Portland, Oregon's largest city, has partnered with Lucid Energy to generate clean electricity from water already flowing through its water distribution system. They've replaced a section of their existing water supply network with pipes containing 4 42-inch turbines. As water flows through these pipes, the turbines spin and generate electricity, which is then fed back into the electrical grid. According to publicly available information, the project will generate an average of 1,100 megawatt hours of energy per year, enough electricity to power up to 150 homes. Can staff review the information available from Lucid Energy and obtain feedback from officials from the City of Portland to provide a detailed analysis to Council on the potential for the development of this or similar technology to generate electricity from the water distribution system in Ottawa?
Great. Thank you. Written inquiry by Councillor Aglai, please.
Thank our City Solicitor, Rick O'Connor, for answering some questions for me over the last couple of days. This is an inquiry about inquiries. We bring a significant number of inquiries, both at committee and at council. And in discussions with Mr. O'Connor, he explained a little bit about the tracking system that we use. So we do track the inquiries coming in, and we do track if they're answered. What we don't look at is what those inquiries are costing us, both in terms of staff time and actual dollars. So that's a discussion that I'll be having with Mr. O'Connor around the governance review coming up. But in the meantime, to inform that discussion, I would like staff to please provide the following. 1, the criteria used to determine whether or not an inquiry, as defined in our bylaw, is standard or significant. 2, any limitations on the type or scope of inquiry made by a member of City Council. And 3, a review of how other municipalities deal with inquiries made to committee or council with a view towards suggesting efficiencies or cost savings over our current process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Adjournment. Councillor Nussbaum, please. Yeah.
That the proceedings of the City Council meeting of April 11th, 2018 be adjourned.
On the motion, carried. Adopté. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.